Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist. It's kind of a bit crazy sometimes. Whenever we try to read Charles Dickens's novels, we actually always think of the novel itself, and we never actually try to think of what is the real version of this. Why did he write about this? I always think it's like, because society was terrible at that time, and he wanted to address that. Well, who's the real Oliver Twist then? Because I've actually heard some people calling this guy named Robert Blinko the real Oliver Twist. Let me just spell his name really quickly right now. Robert Blinko. In fact, this guy wrote a whole book about his life, which actually is really very mirrored version of Oliver Twist. In fact, Charles Dickens never actually referenced the guy, so I'm not really sure, but his life and Oliver Twist is pretty similar, and he lived before Oliver Twist was even first published as a book and serialized form too. So, is this guy the real Oliver Twist? According to this, yes. Workhouse apprentices were often treated like animals and fed on scraps. Many died of malnutrition. One day, Robert Blinko, who survived to tell his tale in the River and is often called the real Oliver Twist, was sent from his working house to work in a Nottinghamshire cotton mill. This is from the Daily Mail, so it's just one source I found, but yeah, good enough for me. Now let's start with the fact of the poor law. I mean, this is a Dark Throne again. I actually like this series, to be honest. I've made so many videos of Dark Thrones. Anyway, so this poor law, there's been several poor laws, but the poor law I'm talking about right now is the poor law of 1834, which is the new poor law. In this poster, it's a description of the new workhouses, and look at the picture. And some of them it says hanging the people who don't work. Ugh. I would not really like here. And oh, sir, have mercy on me. I cannot work on the hand for I'm old and ill. While the ones who can work are like forced to work, the others who can't work are chained up and beaten to death. And these guys who want some work and need to eat, they're like, no, you guys are stupid. You guys haven't worked for so long. You don't deserve to work and have for your bread. Well, these kids are just doing their best. In fact, there's lots of history behind the real Oliver Twist. In fact, Robert Blinko wrote a whole memoir of it. I just scanned through it, but I'm pretty sure it's just some things that are related to Oliver Twist. So Oliver Twist was born as an orphan. This guy was probably born as an orphan too. And turns out he was forced into a workhouse. I'm not sure about the part that he asked for more gruel, but it could be the first real Oliver Twist, because also Charles Dickens never actually mentioned him in the book itself. I'm pretty convinced because of all the sources I've actually been able to find other than the Daily Mail. And it's not only Charles Dickens who actually writes about the whole thing about the poor people. In fact, Jack London went ahead and went again to actually start experiencing it himself. He wrote a book called The People of the Abyss, where he decided to act as if he was a poor person. And there he found out loads of things. Police beat poor people up just because they were sleeping in the middle of the night. And when Jack London tried to sleep like a poor person, the policeman was like, move it! This happened for the whole night until 5 a.m. in the morning, when the parks were open for everyone, even poor people, to come in. And poor people instantly came in and started sleeping, because this is the place where policemen weren't even able to go and talk about them and get up and stuff. And this is also when the times when the rich people like, Lee! And they came in and they said, lazy people, they can't work. They don't bother to work because all they want to do is sleep. And so in the book, this is what Jack London actually writes. He says, also this isn't exactly a quote, it basically says this: don't think of all the poor people in London just because they're sleeping in the park means that they're lazy. In fact, they would rather sleep in the middle of the night that day before. But the police won't let them, so do not even think that they're lazy, because they would rather sleep at the same times as you would do. It's just that they aren't even allowed to. Well, that was a really strong sentence. Also, I'm not really sure how that has to do with the poor law. In fact, it's because of the poor law that everyone actually came in. In fact, when the inspectors of the government came in to really see the state of the poor and how this money that part of the tax is being used to take care of the poor, they see that the fact that, wait, these poor people aren't working. In fact, all they're doing is playing. My gosh, we made a terrible system. Guys, let's go ahead and devise this new poor law. And it forced everyone who can't work into workhouses. And old people who, if they can work, they were forced into the workhouses to work. Their pay was just measly bit of bread and stuff. Sometimes meat. But that's really rare. In fact, loads of people who were sent to poorhouses were separated at birth from their family. Dads were in one room, moms were in another room, brothers were in one room, sisters were in one room, and of course, if you were still a baby who can't even care for your own self or even work because you're like 1 years old, you were sent to a baby raising place where loads of people would usually not even feed you enough because they're like, hey, food, why should I give it to babies? And these were probably the most invisible people in society. And that's how Charles Dickens was able to show it to the world, because he experienced, maybe not working in a workhouse, but he experienced the working himself. And he was the one who took away the invisibility cloak that the government put on all the tragic things and all the poor people of society, all the misdoings of society. And so that's probably why Charles Dickens is a really fascinating guy too. He showed the most invisible people to society. He showed ways to actually probably try to prove and change them. And he himself actually experienced all this himself, that he takes pity on them. And what he could tries to help them. So this is the end of today's episode. I actually hope you enjoyed the behind the history of Oliver Twist. And I hope to see you guys soon in another episode. So until next time, Shannon out. Robert Blinko. Not sure if this is in the mood, but I'll put it in.